All right. Episode. No, I can't. I can't even imitate Luke.
You probably have no idea what episode this is for you guys.
I have no idea. I am the clueless boy when it comes to the podcast. I'm here for the party. Luke is always very, he's so easy to follow. And now here I find myself sitting in the captain's chair, trying to know what to do. Oh man, welcome in you guys. Steady at the Wheel podcast. Oh, you know what I've always actually wanted to do? Luke hasn't let me yet. I'm going to do it now because he's not here. Oh yeah, the clap first of all. There's the clap. What I've always wanted to do is, it's steady at the wheel.
Nothing Luke can do about that now.
No, it's there.
It's in.
Oh man! So you guys, welcome in. We, as you've already noticed today, we are missing an integral part of the podcast. You're gonna have to suffer through. You're just gonna have to deal with it. I've tried to bring in kind of two halves, two half dudes to make a whole, so that it'll kind of be like a normal episode with Luke and I. But it's the
best we could do to try to make up for it.
Best we could do.
And Luke's schedule is just...
Yeah, so that's why Luke's not here today. We always talk about how we're just like craziness. We're like, there's just crazy this and crazy that, and things are going and wild. It really is that way. We don't just say it. And we came up against this spot where Weston was here, and we just couldn't quite make the logistics work. So we're gonna rock it on. What's that, Rooster? What's that phrase when the cat's away, the mice? No. Something about the mice playing when the cat's away.
Like when the cat's away, the mice will play.
Ah, that's it. Yeah, Rooster's always good for a good, saying.
Yeah,
like
he's
that.
got all those quips down.
Quips. Yeah. So you're gonna notice today it's gonna be, you're not gonna hear very many fancy words like Luke usually brings in, and anyway, you're gonna have to bear with it.
I would just say the overall intelligence level of the whole podcast is just gone a couple of floors down.
Which is, but that is again just a sign of me fulfilling my role, always providing a new low. Like that's what I do. See what I mean?
So it's just kind of a constant low that you're providing on this episode.
So if I didn't somehow lower it another notch, I wouldn't be doing my job.
There you go.
So let's just look at it that way, that by sitting in the big chair here, I am lowering it yet another notch. We've talked to you guys. We've teased this it's been a few months now. We've talked about doing this, and the day has arrived. I have a very special guest, a guest that's just dear to my heart. My boy, you guys. This is Weston. We're going to introduce Weston. He was referred to earlier as Stony. That's been his nickname forever growing up. Yeah. Stony
or Stoner. Yeah, which was great at track meets or anything, being really young when the whole family is yelling, "Run, Stoner! Go, Stoner!" And everyone's looking around like, who are they?
Who's that druggie?
Who's that poor, abused little child? Everyone's yelling Stoner at.
Dude, and I didn't realize this till just now, but my oldest boy, Freddie, his nickname, I'm a nickname guy. And I'm always assigning nicknames, and they're revolving. And currently, Freddie's nickname is Weed Man.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with marijuana. It went from like Freddie to Frito to Freedman to Freedman, Weed Man, just because it rhymes.
Yeah.
And now, I will, from the stage or something, I'll be like, all right, Weed Man solo, playing guitar, and same thing. So he's suffering through some of the same problems that you did.
Stoner and Weed Man just holding down the fort.
Holding down the fort out here.
That's funny.
Couldn't be less of a stoner outfit around this place. Yeah. Couldn't be less of a Weed Man outfit around this place. Yet, there they are. You guys, this is Weston. He's here. He's in force. He's in power. Weston, a little bit about Stony. He's the youngest in the family. The little guy, the runt.
I don't know about that.
The laziest.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I'm not sure. No, Roos kind of hoping Roos would jump in and back me up a little
he
bit.
wasn't. He just sat there.
Just letting Jay run with it.
He just sat there in pure silence. It's hard to rebut the truth, as you may know from your law stuff. It's hard to rebut the truth.
Well, that's actually perfect, because I've got a rebuttal. I have several. First of all, long-time wheeler, as you guys would call maybe your listeners.
Yeah, right. Wheelers. Yep.
Long-time wheeler. It feels weird to be on the podcast without I didn't really realize that y'all just start talking. You know, I'm used to the lead-in music every time I listen.
Oh, because
to it,
you
so
listen.
I was kind of.
You're waiting like, where's the track?
What's that called? The guy with the dog and the salivating dog, the bell. What's that
Oh,
called?
Pavlov's dogs.
Yeah, that was
the experiment.
Yeah, I was just waiting for that music because I didn't think there was a podcast without the intro.
Yeah,
music.
it's just kind of we're just here in the wild.
But back to my rebuttals. I've had a couple, and I didn't write them down. I'm kicking myself. But there's one. As I listen to these podcasts, obviously, you know, I kind of know some of these backstories, and there's just a couple things old Jackson's got away with that. Luke does a pretty good job kind of making sure, you know, calling you out on anything, right? And there's just a couple. It was on, I think it was episode 13, I think is when y'all
But before you do this, you realize that you are going to shatter my whatever the person is that people feel about me right now, listening out there in the audio land. It's going to be destroyed by these rebuttals.
And I am completely okay with that. I have no qualms.
Don't care.
I have absolutely no qualms with that. No, it was on the Screaming Meanie. When you were talking about this. Do you remember that, Roos?
Yeah, that little alarm clock.
Yeah.
It was not a little alarm clock, though.
The little chirping little alarm clock.
Just a quick, you don't have to retell the whole.
I'll give you a quick background to it. So several episodes ago, we told a story about this little contraption, and it was brought to my mind because I found one in South Dakota.
Yeah.
Okay. And since we had that episode, you can't believe how many people sent messages either telling me about their Screaming Meanie experience or actually sending a picture of them holding their Screaming Meanie. I'm like, no way. So this still is a thing. But Rooster came home once off the road with this alarm clock called the Screaming Meanie. And for all you new listeners that haven't gone back and listened to that episode, it was the most hellacious sounding, just death bomb raging scream blast
to wake up truckers from a deep sleep,
deep sleep. And so Rooster apparently used it once or twice and hated it, so he just brought it home and kind of put it on the counter, so to speak.
Yes, and so everyone should go back and listen to that episode if they haven't. It's a great one. But you talked about a story kind of spinning off of the Screaming Meanie, where you talked about the irrigating we did growing up, and that sometimes if you really buckle down and you'd change the dams through the night and make your irrigation sets through the night, that you could
efficiency.
You'd be more efficient. And what you'd said was,
and we were always wanting to garner kind of father's pride.
Yes.
Like, do you approve, Father?
So Jackson,
was it correct?
When Jackson was given this, he said that as a 12-year-old or whatever, that he was just kind of looking at things and had just realized, Dad, my goodness, if I just go through the night, I think that sure helped the family out around these parts. I really think it'd just take a lot off your back and off your plate if you'd let me just go ahead and do this. And that's kind of how Jackson introduced that thought came. What the 100% truth is that Jackson was looking for any excuse to be able to get with his cousins and play video games throughout the entire night. And the real thing is the only way he could get approval to do that is if he said, "Hey, we'll do all these night sets through the night."
Okay.
But there was no, altruistic trying to help out the family through the tough times and help his paw because his dad had so much hard stuff he was going through. 100% false, because he just wanted to play video games through the entire night. And it just happened that he, we'll set this Screaming Meanie, and if we wake up, that thing will wake us up, and we take a little snooze.
Yeah,
I was there. That's kind of my point with me on the podcast is, your first episode talked about how Jackson got his start in trucking and all this stuff, and I was there. Anyway, go ahead.
I'm going to rebut now because you guys heard it from Weston. You heard his perspective. He doesn't believe that I was just trying to help out my paw. He thinks it was more of a you wanted to play video games.
Jackson, the truth is coming out.
It's all starting to unravel.
No, I have a key piece of this is I don't know what you call this in law. You guys, by the way, Weston now practices law. He's a lawyer in Texas.
I'm not a litigator, so if I don't know all these terms, it's not my fault.
So here's the thing. I want you to just keep in mind as Weston tells you these stories from his perspective. This was also in the same week that in the middle of the night, Weston woke up and decided, I'm going to wander home in the middle of the night. I'm just going to walk on home. In the middle of the night. So he just wandered down the road.
From where you guys were doing this, at the feedlot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just 2 a.m, whatever it was, you're just going to hoof it on out.
You know, and I think as some of the stories that Bill shared about me, that Billy Jack shared on the podcast,
right.
I think it's probably pretty clear, you know, I was maybe a little, I don't know, I don't want to say neglected, but I'm also not saying that I was neglected, but where are these 12-year-old brothers that were supposed to be watching me through the night?
True.
To where I'm just a lost little 5-year-old kid.
You were lost.
Oh, Bill's stories had me laughing.
Weren't those good?
Yeah. I don't remember the story about me being set on top of that dumpster full of dead sheep.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I probably repressed it. But I do remember.
It's like your brain protecting itself. Isn't that a thing where
yeah. I do remember every time hopping out of the truck and old Rooster saying, wait, take off your shoes, before I jump out of the semi.
That must have been before, Rooster, you decided it was easier to just wash the feet rather than wear the shoes.
The thing is that
that was it. He was telling me take my shoes off before I jump out of the truck.
Before you got out, not when you got in. Because most people are like, take them off before you get in.
Before I jumped out to go run out through the stockyards, like, whoa, take your shoes off before you go out there. Yeah, that's the opposite of what it normally is.
Totally opposite. And the other part of that that's funny is it's coming from a guy in Rooster who we learned in that episode washed his truck twice a year. So the fact that he actually cared whether or not the pig manure was leaving little kids' footprints all throughout his truck, you know.
The thing, those tennis shoes, it would just absorb it and last for weeks. So those shoes were not allowed to walk the alleys of the pig.
Yeah, good looking out for my shoes, Dad.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys in that pig stink. If you've never been around pigs, you don't really understand it. Like, not pigs, like confinement raised in a barn pigs. Their manure is it is a smell that is just kind of unlike anything else.
Remember some of those pigs, the confinement hogs, would come to the feedlot and they'd never been on dirt. Did y'all ever talk about that?
Yeah. Well, no, we didn't talk about it, but I remember.
Yeah, I had something. I made some correlation when I was working a couple weeks ago, and it was like someone was in a situation, and it was like they had no idea what they were doing. But it reminded me of these confinement hogs that Rooster would get in, and we'd put them on the scale, right, which is not dirt. But pushing them off the scale, you go off some cement into dirt, and they would just be like shaking.
They're like, what is it? Because total like,
oh yeah,
Twilight Zone for them.
It not all of them, right? But just some of those would have. They'd have some serious hesitation before they'd.
Yeah.
Remember those?
Oh man, I do.
Funny.
Yep. So what he's talking about is, Rooster purchased pigs every week from the Hooterites, and all those pigs were raised, in a confined setting. So they were inside of a big hog barn, and in that hog barn they were either on a crated floor, kind of a graded floor, those hard plastic graded floors, or on concrete. So when we'd bring them, first time they're, getting their big trip to town, so to speak. And I can kind of relate to this. First time I think I traveled to the city. Like first time I think I flew into Tulsa, which to most people you're like, that's not the city. But for me, that was like, oh man.
Doesn't get any bigger than this,
Don't get any
boys.
bigger than Tulsa, Oklahoma. Step off the plane. And I had the same thing all of a sudden. I start getting the shakes, and I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, that was the...
What's this car zipping by? And you're just like, no, this ain't Montana. So anyway, Rooster, they'd bring these hogs in, and we would unload them off the truck right onto the scale where he'd weigh them so that he knew how much to purchase them for, because he'd buy them by the pound. And we had this little concrete pad off of the end of the scale. So after they were weighed, after the transaction was done, they'd move off the scale onto a big square piece of concrete, and then off of that concrete, it was a little step down, and off of that concrete was dirt.
Yeah.
And they'd kind of all pile up, and then one would get pushed off and land on the dirt. Yeah. Oh, and then anyway,
those are fun memories. And I remember Rooster would, as he'd buy hogs he'd have kind of one big buying day, usually right on a Monday.
Yeah, Mondays.
Everyone's bringing hogs in, and all the sows that he'd buy, they'd all kind of go just into that alley.
It was a big long dirt alley, a lot of shade and stuff. So we kind of let them acclimate. Yeah, just turn them loose in that alley, and because they come from different consigners, so they're all making friends, so to speak, out there. Meeting each other for the first time. You just let them have the day.
Yeah, and I remember being the youngest, I was always, kind of there throughout the whole day. And every couple hours, Rooster's saying, all right, go take those hogs around and pen them. And just how scary that would be by myself, taking all those hogs and pushing them all the way down the alley and getting them in a pen. But also, once school got out for you guys, no better feeling in the world than when I'm in the middle of pushing all these hogs, and then all of a sudden Jackson and some cousins are right behind me, and I feel like...
You felt like the cavalry had arrived to reinforce you. You're like,
exactly.
The troops are here. We've
got them now, boys.
It's something about that, because I've had... And Luke, of course, this is probably where it's good that Luke's not here, because he'd be like, yeah, I'm the oldest. Yep. No cavalry for me. He's always the guy.
That is true.
It is true.
I'm kind of the flip of that, though, in that I'm the youngest, which everyone thinks a lot of cavalry, right? But at a point, like when Jackson's done, because Jackson's the next oldest boy above me, that the cavalry kind of runs out, and there's no younger kids to help, no older kids to help.
True.
It's just
so
me.
You and Luke kind of do have a common thread. It like comes full circle back around where, but back to the point of and some of you guys might reminisce on this a little bit. Like, and we were, and we'll talk about this coming up. This is why we brought old Rooster in to help shine some light on this a little bit. But there is this thing where when you're young and you're pushed to do hard stuff, it's really scary, but it's good. In fact, I think I came across a quote, and I can't remember exactly who said it, but it was something along the lines of, it's important for your kids to do scary things, to have your kids do scary things. Don't shield and protect them from anything scary. Actually have them do hard and scary things under close supervision from the parent. And,
that's really good.
And I look back at so much of the stuff that we did, and I'm like, what in the world? How could Rooster have us do this?
I'd had you do a lot of hard and scary things without much supervision.
I know, that's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, Rooster is full on with that quote, except for the under close supervision part.
I would say I think Grandpa Don had you guys doing hard things unsupervised, just to be.
He had us do stuff that I look back on and just cringe.
And you cringe.
Oh, yeah. I said, how? I would never, ever have my kids. So I told you about the cows going Kalispell.
We might have mentioned, but it's been so long ago. I don't know that you have mentioned this specific story, actually. Yeah,
my older brother's a year older than me. He's in 8th grade. I'm in 7th. And my dad sends us, how far's Kalispell? 200-300 miles?
Yeah.
2 loads of bred cows to this guy up in the mountains, Kalispell. We're both years from having a license, so we take these 2 22-foot stock trucks and head out, which we thought, that's great. We didn't think that was a big of a deal. But looking back, I can't believe he had us do that. So we made it over there, got them unloaded, coming back through Missoula and blow a tire out on Wade's truck, a front tire. So we limp into this wood close to a truck stop, and it was the middle of the night, couldn't get in to take care of it till the next day. So they had some old cots in this old truck stop where all the truckers were laying. So we paid $1 and we were sleeping in these cots with these old truckers.
Isn't that just like out of a movie?
That's 7th and 8th grade?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was insane. Looking back, I would never send you guys to do that until you were at least 13 and 14.
I know, and that's really the thing.
That does remind me of kind of my first experience with, and this was actually, let's see, after you graduated.
It was. Let me just wrap up this last thought. So I felt like, because this story is good. I felt like Grandpa Don did these things that were like, ooh, kind of, ooh. And then, like, you had us do things that were like unsupervised, but it wasn't. I didn't feel like it was ever. We were just totally out there, like, well, come what may. I felt like you always knew what was going on, and whether it was the hired man was kind of in the wings out there to, And so when I read that quote, I was like, that is really. There were a few little sketchy things like we're probably going to talk about here in a second, but it all boils back down to the cavalry, that when the quote unquote supervision arrives, like when you're young and you're chasing these pigs all the way around this 1/4 mile alleyway to pen them into their final pen for the night. what's so scary about it is that those pigs will turn around. They'll like kind of contest your action a little bit. And when you're 6 years old and a 500-pound sow turns around and goes, "Ooh," you're like, "Oh, what?" And you're immediately up the fence. And then they go back. But then that cavalry arrives. You mentioned like school gets out, and here comes, my brother who's, in my case, 5 years older. It's just like, oh, we're safe now. We're safe and we're protected, and everything's going to be fine. And I remember that with my next, which you guys haven't met Coulter yet, but he's the next older immediate brother between Luke and I. And I had the same feelings when I was working, and Coulter would show up. It was just like, nothing matters. Everything's safe. We're fine. Coulter's here. Coulter's good. But I never did put that together that you did once I was gone and graduated and gone. You were left to kind of holding the bag going, oh, okay, which is going to lead into this story.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm trying to think. When you left, I was, probably 12. I think I was 11 or 12.
Yeah, it was in 2005 is when I ventured out.
I was 12. So, and then kind of no one else to do stuff. So poor Rooster went from having Jaxon, who was extremely capable about anything.
Hey.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jim.
I mean, this is the truth. Jay could handle anything, and he was left with just kind of the dumb, lazy-eyed grunt.
well, we laugh. But the funny thing is even in your position, that would probably be hard going, I just had this, a late teenager leave, and now I'm left with a not teenager to fill in the gap.
Yeah.
And so no matter how good you are at doing things, it's just there's a gap there still, And so Rooster's left with that, but Rooster's like, no, it'll be fine. I'll just have him do all the exact same things.
Well, you had to. Yeah, I remember, let's see, that first, right when you left, that spring, hauling cattle to Pishkin. Do you remember this, Bruce, when we would...
Yeah, what Pishkin is, we live on a big irrigation project at Fairfield, and the irrigation project where they had their big reservoirs, they also own several thousand acres around the reservoir. And people that were clients or customers of the reservoir were allowed to put cattle. Depending on how much ground you had, you could put so many cattle as kind of part of the package deal, very reasonable pasture. So we qualified for, 15 pairs about?
Yeah, just like...
So we'd always fill up our quota.
Mm-hmm. Which was a big deal for us. It was nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very affordable grass. They don't charge you much because
Stick them out there and forget about them till fall.
But it was just a couple trailer loads was all that we'd end up having to take up there. But I remember that's when it hit me like, oh man, Jackson's gone. Was when I was 12 years old, and Roost had to, instead of taking 2 trips all the way up there, he said, I'm going to hook up a trailer. And you're going to pull a trailer. It was just, a truck. Like
so we're talking a pickup with,
just
a pickup pulling a stock trailer behind it.
Exactly, yeah. So just a pickup and a stock trailer. But Ruth's saying, no, we got 2 trucks. We'll just hook up the other trailer and you take that with your cousin, who's also 12. And then Rooster was in front of us. But I remember we got up early, loaded the trailers, and just went up the highway and then onto the dirt road.
Because most of the trip, there's just a short bit of highway, and then you turn off, and it's gravel for 20 miles.
Yeah, so it's safe. There's not much traffic, so I felt pretty confident we wouldn't have highway patrolmen or DOTs or any problems like that.
Do you remember the rigs you were driving, what we had?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's funny. We had it was a 97 Ford 1-ton Power Stroke, 5-speed manual. And then we also had it's probably like a 03 or 04. It was a single cab, 3/4 ton Ford, but it had a big V10 gas motor.
Yeah.
But it was, I think it was a 6-speed manual.
Yeah.
And I was a little less comfortable driving that single cab gas truck. So I pulled the smaller trailer with the big 1-ton because I felt a little better.
So you were in the big Power Stroke.
I was actually in the big Power Stroke because Rooster said, which one are you a little more comfortable driving? And I like driving the big
You're
Power
like,
Stroke.
give me the beast, man. We called it the beast.
Yeah, the beast.
Give me the beast.
Not even a question for me. So Roost had to pull the big trailer with the...
But it's also a stick shift. They were both...
Yeah,
the beast was a stick shift.
Yeah, I don't think I we didn't have an automatic truck for
No,
forever.
because back in those days, automatics were awful. Like
Yeah.
I mean, they were functional, but when you used them for towing and stuff, it was like, oh yeah, they're gonna blow up in 30, 40,000 miles. They're shot. So nobody had work pickups back then with automatics.
And plus, we always fed cows a lot of times by yourself, so you'd put in first, jump out of the truck, jump in the back,
Yeah.
throw out the hay, and then jump back out and jump back in the pickup that's still moving. Automatic, it might start moving, hit a little frozen cow manure or something, and it
would
just stop.
Yeah, because the stick shifts will crawl. Because back then we fed small square bales, and so to feed a small square bale, yeah, you jump in the back, and if you're by yourself, there's nobody there. So truck creeps along, you cut the strings, and you just flake off. You can't just throw the whole bale out at once. You have to very consistently flake off, an 8-inch piece of hay, and then had to have the next bale cut in time to keep the flow going. So it was this nice, steady flow.
I guess that's probably how everyone fed on the bench back in the day, just small squares.
Yeah,
of the
because
truck.
round balers and tractors, and they just very few people had them.
Yeah. So I was in the Beast pulling the smaller bumper pole, and then Roos was in that other truck with
the big
gooseneck. Yeah, but it was kind of wet that morning the whole way. So
It rained the night before.
Okay.
But why you bring these nightmares back?
See, and I was gone, and I just get a letter like, my version is like, oh, hauled cattle to Pishkin. It was kind of tough. Miss you.
But we'd got to, the whole road was wet kind of the whole way, but not bad, except for one hill. There's one big steep hill that was real bad. And what ended up happening, Roos? Did one of us spin out, or did
Yeah, I spun out. Thanks for bringing that up.
Oh, Rooster, and he had the big load, all the weight.
So I got 2/3 up the hill, and I spin out.
And this is in 4-wheel drive, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. Just chugging and churning. So, and the hill looked, it's pretty well graveled, that hill, but
I forgot.
couldn't even come close to make it. So I stopped, jumped out, and I tried to flag them. Don't even try it, because there's no way he'd make it.
So this is where it comes in with the close supervision. He at least stopped and was like, Stoney, stop.
Yeah.
Don't come up here.
So I got stopped.
Or you'd have been like Billy Jack, try to come on by.
So I got stopped, and then Dad comes down to me to say, "Oh, we're gonna have to figure something out, or turn back or something." He notices that one of the tires had gone flat on that bumper pull that I was pulling.
Okay.
And as he notices this, I'm remembering all this now. We look up, and his truck, was turned off in gear with park and brake on.
And that's all you can do
Right.
with the manual. There's no other thing you can do. That's it. That's in gear, parking brake on.
And it
That's it.
seemed fine when I got out.
Oh.
It was holding just fine.
Yeah, as he sees this flat tire and says, "Hey, you got a flat," we look up, and we hear a little commotion, and his truck starts going down the hill backwards.
Oh no.
And does a jackknifes, not a real bad, but it jackknifes, and the trailer's on.
Goes kind of down the borrow
Yeah.
pit a little bit, so all the cattle
Oh, and they all
smashed
shift
to the
and,
back
yeah.
of the. And I'm just at disbelief.
Didn't crunch up the truck? Did it crunch the truck?
No.
No, not nothing bad. I think there was one tiny ding on the bed rail. I think. That's right. Now I'm remembering this. And so, but this is I remember this story as being a 12-year-old. Poor Rooster's probably just like, I can't believe this is going on. I've got these two.
That's all he has. That's all there is.
But it was a real sunny day. It was actually a nice day, and Roos knew it was.
He's like, no, it wasn't a nice day. It was the worst day that it had in years.
But the weather was nice, and Roos knew that the road was going to dry out pretty quick. So what we ended up doing was getting all the cattle out of his trailer, which we couldn't get the back gate open on it.
No, the back gate was cattle were all
Jammed
piled up
against.
against it. So that little side gate on the side.
Oh yeah, this little side.
Yeah, which
It's only like 3 feet tall, isn't it? It
and it's
doesn't
only
go all
about
the
this
way up.
wide. But we got a few cattle that
Just enough
kind of
to-
pulling enough to get some pressure off that tailgate. So I got it up, and the cattle just came tumbling out.
And when you say tumbling out, we're talking just out onto into
Yeah.
the road. It's just
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, on the road, and we dumped the cattle out of my trailer with a flat, and Roos
So at this point, you've turned loose all the cattle,
Yeah, they're
the
just
whole,
all- yeah.
and you're 10 miles into the journey probably.
Yeah, and Rooster told me and Cotton, the other 12-year-old cousin, said, "One of you go up on kind of the top of the hill, so if anything's coming down, the others stay down. You just watch these cattle and let them graze in the borrow pit, while he takes my truck back with the flat, so he can go take care of that and come back, and the road will be dried, and we can get his truck out.
I actually picked up a brother and a horse.
Did you grab a horse? Okay.
Yeah.
So me and Cotton stay there for, it must have been a couple hours.
Oh, I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the time you got the horse and the tire.
Yeah. So of me and him just making sure, trying to flag any traffic down, getting around and watching cattle, make sure we don't lose any cattle.
Yeah, one at each end of the road so the cattle couldn't get by
Keep
either
them
one of
going.
them.
Yeah. And then Dad came back with Uncle Ethan and a horse.
Again, like the cavalry, it's like, oh.
Yeah. And we ended up trailing, luckily up on top of the hill, someone had a corral on the side of the road. I don't know whose it was.
I think it might have been a next dead crow, just a little junky.
Yeah.
Just barely enough to hold something in it.
Yeah. So we ended up getting all the cattle in there, reloading and going back.
See, that's the thing about these crazy stories. This is the hard fun stuff we talked about. It was a hard fun or easy fun last episode. And this is the hard fun where you're like, you get them trailed up to the corral, and it's like, okay, well, we're going to start over again. Like, it's not done.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't win by getting him in the corral. It's like, okay, let's load him.
You guys just imagine my nightmare, though. I'm done with the two little fellers down below by their flat tire. I look up this hill, and here goes my nice pickup with that trailer just skidding down the hill. And I thought it was going to go off.
Well, you don't know. Yeah, you have
roll
no
several
idea.
times. I had no idea how it was going to end. When I finally jackknifed into the borrow pit,
And then you almost
stopped.
don't want to go look. You're like, I don't even want to know what
we
happened.
could hear the cattle just
Scrambling around.
piling.
And for me, I guess this is what hauling cattle's like. Just another day.
And as you learn throughout the years, that is kind of what hauling cattle is like.
Yeah, I do remember one funny thing also that just came back to me after we dumped cattle at Pishkin, and I was in with Dad, and we were driving back, I think, to where my truck was, because we just ferried them with the one truck afterward, I think. But I remember Dad just being so stressed, I'm sure, zapped, and he had other stuff he had to get to and everything. And I remember him just saying, "Can you put some music on or something?" And
Oh, great.
there was like, and this whole time, this little kid, I was just praying the whole time that everything would work out. And
Yeah.
and there was like a little CD. It was like children's gospel music. And so of course, I'm
With all your faith.
I just need any sort of help we can get, be it from higher power or not. So I said, "Oh yeah, we got some music," and I put in and just fire up this like a cappella children's gospel music. And I remember Ruth just going, "How about the radio or anything?"
And you're young and full of faith, just looking at him like, no, this is the way, Father.
Oh man, I can't imagine now if a little kid, when I'm just stressed out of my mind, said, "Oh yeah, no, I got something that'll settle the nerves." Anyway,
It's kind of like, you remember Luke's story he said earlier about when he was having trouble with those goats, and he's like, he's telling Ozzy, "We're gonna sell them all. I'm getting rid of all these goats." And Ozzy's like, "Even this one?" "Yes." "Even this one?" Yeah, that's kind of the same flavor. Where, could you just turn something on, son? I just can't handle the silence anymore.
man, that is so funny. It's exact.
Oh man. So that was I think part of why it was so stressful too, probably for you, Roost, was in those days. So Rooster had his regular run, which was Tuesday to Friday. That was like gospel. I mean, every Tuesday he's gone. It was Monday at the feedlot, Tuesday to Friday on the truck, Saturday doing some kind of project chore, church on Sunday. And so any of these things that we had to do, whether it was working the elk, doing exotic animal work, trying to take care of these various side project things that you did, it always had to be squeezed into that little window. So it was either Monday afternoon / evening that we'd try to do this, because it had to be after school, but before he left on the truck, but after you were done buying hogs Monday afternoon. And so it was always, everything was always just so like, I think that's why you're always telling us to hustle. Because it was like his windows were always so short.
That was Rooster's signature phrase. And if we weren't hustling enough, say, "The only reason I ask you to do something instead of me doing it myself is to save me time. So you better be running."
That is exactly, I forgot that. I completely forgot that, because that's exactly what you would say. It was like, this is your purpose in life, is to save me time. And you're like, okay, so if I was going to walk, I'll go walk and do it myself. You can run. I don't want to run, so go. Okay.
But you're right. All this had to end up being on, seemed like Saturdays, didn't it?
Yeah,
Whenever
it was always just these short little windows that we had, because, Rooster, you probably didn't need to be running those 15, 20 head of cows you always had on the side, before we came to the ranch. Probably didn't need to, it wasn't this major financial, thing for you, but it was just what you did. It was like, it's cows. We have them. We have room for them. So why would you not have stock? And it was always
added a lot of color to our lives, didn't it?
You guys truly did. If you think back on it, you guys were involved with livestock, elk, camels, ostriches, emus, wallabies. You guys had a very
seriously,
very unique upbringing.
I know. It's funny actually now working with a bunch of people in the law office that I work at, but something will come up. Someone said their sister was a vet and she was doing something on a camel. And I'm like, oh yeah, we raise camels. I'm like, no, wait, you said you ranch. I was like, oh yeah, no, but we had camels too. And then someone else will be, something about, oh, we should get an auctioneer. And I'm like, oh, my family auctioneer and family, I auctioneer and stuff. Wait, no, but I thought you guys ranch and you had exotics. Oh, well, no, we auctioneer too. It's just a lot of weird stuff. Pretty funny.
Oh, it's true. It's so true. That was the routine was, what do? We'd go feed cows first over at the feedlot, and then you'd throw more hay on across the road.
Yeah.
Go feed the elk. After the elk, go feed the camels. Put corn out for the swans. It was just this flow of stuff. You got in on a lot of. I don't know if you want to talk about this now or if we should say this for another thing. But your auction, when you just talked about auctioneering.
Oh, we do need to talk. Maybe we'll save that for another episode.
We might need to put a little thought into that because there's some treasures. Weston, I'll just give you this teaser and that'll be that, so you can keep this in the back of your mind. But shortly after this, so all this was going on because I had left and was serving a mission for our church for a couple years, and so that's why Weston was picking up all the slack. And when I got home from my mission, my uncle had asked me if I wanted to come auctioneer. He owned the sale barn here in Lewistown. He's like, you want to come on in? Come auctioneer? It'd be great. I'll teach you the ways. And I was like, well, okay. I guess I hadn't really ever thought of it. Sure, I'll do it. And he was just going to teach me. And Rooster was like, no. If you're going to auctioneer, we're going to send you off to auction school. We're going to do it right. And I don't know how it ended up, but Weston, as an 8th grader, wasn't he in 8th grade spring? Mm-hmm. Summer of 8th grade, early summer? Weston ends up, Dad has just decided Weston's got to go to auction school too. Jackson's going, we might as well send Weston. So Weston becomes the youngest ever. I don't know if this is still current, but at the time, no, just take the accolade. I'd like to introduce to you the youngest ever auctioneer to graduate from the Western College of Auctioneering in Billings, Montana, Weston Allen.
Thank you, Jackson, for that fine introduction. Great to be here on the podcast.
So Weston finagles his way in, have to pull some strings, beg and plead with the administration, and they're like, okay, we'll let him as long as his brother will be responsible for him. Anyway, that led to some great stories at auction school that we're definitely going to share later on.
Yeah, we need to, for sure. But the trucking was always kind of the constant through everything, wasn't it?
It was. So, so let's move forward because this next little evolution is in the same vein as the Pishkin nightmare. And that was that after I got home, and this is good. This is good to share a little more of our trucking history,
Oh, yeah. We take it from the beginning.
Right from the beginning. So when I get home, my uncle decided he wanted me to auctioneer. So I'm like, okay, I could do that. And realize, if you take it serious, you can kind of make I don't want to say make a living auctioneering, but you can supplement, be a nice little thing to bring in a little money. And at that point, I'm like now an adult. You're like 21 years old, and you're like, okay, I'm a man now. I got to learn the ways and provide. And so we do the auctioneering, and then I'm here ranching the rest of the week, just helping Rooster. At the time, the place, was needing
a lot of work.
A lot of work. And I'd kind of had plans to go to college and do the thing, but getting home, realizing Lyle needed an auctioneer, Rooster needed a helpful hand after realizing that Weston just wasn't ever going to quite cut it.
I mean, probably true.
That had to feel good for you, though, when I got home and decided to stay, and you were just like,
That was awesome. Yeah, and that's another thing we could talk about. There there was a year in there when we came back, and so we were on the ranch now with a whole lot of cattle.
Yeah, 300 some cows and
calving season, and Jackson was on his
and
mission.
I was still gone.
And Dad got real sick.
Oh, that's right.
Remember that first year?
Oh my!
Yeah,
I had that.
Hit some gout or something.
They thought it was gout, but they never did know what it was. My ankle swelled up huge, and they had to do
So
surgery.
first year on the ranch, it just turns into a nightmare, and you're all by yourself.
Brutal. Yeah, and I was,
and it was just you.
Yeah, just a little 8th grader, and again, there's no cavalry, man. This is it. Dad is pretty.
Kind of laid up,
and pretty
just
laid up,
in a lot of pain.
Yeah. So, and that was either right at the. I think it was right at the start of calving season. So Roos is trying to kind of talk me through stuff and how to do night checks and what to look for, because
And I mean, we had cattle in Fairfield,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like cattle.
Yeah, it
like
wasn't.
we're in cattle country now,
Yeah. So anyway, so all that to say, when you came home, that was a huge relief.
So I started to realize, I ended up getting home and get married and things, and realized that I just am not making enough money. It's not quite working. I need to try to create something more. I've always loved the trucking. Rooster at this point was starting to let me borrow his truck because he was kind of slowing down. He wasn't doing the hog hauling as much anymore. A couple trips a month, I think, by that point.
Yeah.
So in the off days, you'd line me up these loads of cattle from back where we came from, over there by where Luke lives now. And on Monday nights, I'd go over there with the truck and I'd load cattle up for people that wanted to sell their cattle at the livestock auction here. So it was kind of cool because I was an auctioneer there, and I'd go over and we'd get the cattle from these people. I'd load them in Rooster's, old blue 2, and haul them. They'd pay you after fuel. You'd probably make $400 or something like that. But that was a huge deal back in 08, 09. It was like, that's I'm a young guy.
Yeah.
So that was a huge leg up for me. Rooster letting me just here you go, you pay for your fuel, use my truck, do the thing, go make a little money. So we were doing that. At the same time that we were doing that, the way that the ranch here was set up was we have this home place here where we put up our hay in the summertime, and the cows spend their late fall and their winter and their spring. And then kind of late spring, early summer, that limbo period where the grass is starting to grow, we would load all of our cows up. And at the time, it was about 12 loads of cattle, I think. Didn't it seem like, Rooster? About 12 semi-loads,
yeah.
Seemed like back and forth. I'm pretty sure that's kind of where we ended.
I think it was.
There was another place that we rented that was south of here a ways, 30 miles, 25, 30 miles on gravel. And so in the spring, we would haul all our cattle. And this is very normal. A lot of ranches do this. They have their home place, they call it, and then their summer grass, right? So summer grass, you haul your cattle out to the range or to wherever your place is. In our case, it was in the mountains. You'd haul them out there and unload them, and those cattle and their babies would spend the summer out there just having a party, eating the grasses, growing, being good, drinking the mountain waters.
Right.
Trying to paint a beautiful picture here. And then in the fall, after the calves had grown up, you'd bring them back home to the home place and keep them for a couple months until it was time to sell them, and that was kind of the cycle, right? But we had one little weak spot in this deal at the ranch that brought so much just hectic
stress.
So much stress down in our lives, and that was getting cattle to the mountains. And here's why it was. This is why it was so stressful. Being that it was a mountain place, it was kind of a double-edged sword. Okay, so the upside of a mountain grass is that it's really nutritious. They get more moisture up there, so it tends to grow and continue to grow and replenish. Whereas if you go out more in the desert part of Montana, you kind of get the spring grass, and that's kind of it.
Yeah.
So because it is in the mountains, though, higher elevation, spring comes later than it does here. So we'd have these cows here at the home place, and we'd run out of hay, kind of get to the end of the hay pile, and then we'd turn them out on grass here. We had limited grass at the home place, and those cows would eat, and pretty soon the grass is here starting to look pretty slim. This is like 1st of June by then. Most people around here haul out, May 10th, May 15th, cattle are gone. we couldn't usually do it till, wasn't it like June 5th through the 12th-ish? Was that kind of seemed like that was the window?
Yeah, I think so.
So there's always this fine line where you're like, man, if we can get them to the mountains, they're going to just go wild up there. But we have no grass left here, and so the cattle are pushing on the fences, and they're trying to get into the neighbors and trying to get on the road. But we couldn't leave here yet because that grass hadn't matured yet up there, right? So you're like, we just got to wait a little longer. But also, the other catch was that the road to get to our little mountain spot was extremely sketchy. It was like 18 miles were really good.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the last, whatever it was, the balance of it, which I can't remember exactly. Let's say it was the last 7 miles, was really bad if it was wet, like Pishkin did to you guys.
Exactly.
And so we had one semi. Oh, then the third thing about this place, starting to look at it and go, this place. So the third thing about this place was that the road is so windy and so narrow in spots that very few cattle truckers with the regular, 53-foot cow trailer, they're not going to go in there. They're like, no, it's too rough, it's too tight, it's too sketchy. I'm just not going to do it. But Rooster had Blue 2 that if you guys remember, if you've gone back and looked, if not, you can go look on my Wild Wild West YouTube channel. There's a really good episode where we talk about Blue 2. And this truck kind of articulated in the middle. And so because of that, it could get around tight corners great. That's the reason that you and Billy Jack made it up into Deadwood.
Yep,
right? Because it could, and the reason you could go downtown and watch movies and next to the Corn Palace in Mitchell, South Dakota,
and also get it through the Wendy's drive-through in Miles City.
Yeah,
Montana.
yeah. Rooster, you got to be the only guy that's taken a semi legitimately without getting towed out through the drive-through at Wendy's.
In Miles City, it's beyond belief. I looked at it once. I thought, there's an outside shot. I could get through that drive-through with this thing. And so I went ahead and tried it. And I actually could. But when I'd be at the pickup window, my trailer would block the next person that wanted to order. That's how long I was. And when I'd come through there, everyone that's in that little restaurant would get out of their tables and come stare out the window at this semi going through this drive-through.
Of all the things Bruce could have been paying attention to there, I think there's an outside shot.
I think I can get into this place without having to stop. See, because it was always hammer down. Let's go. Oh, okay. So those were kind of the three issues, the challenges of this upper ranch, right? So that left us with a 12 loads of cattle, and it's far enough away that if you went from 5 in the morning until 2 in the morning, so if you drove the full day, 3 loads you could do. If you just hammered and everything went perfectly smooth.
It's slow going.
That's 3 loads. So a quick bit of division would tell you that if you could do 3 loads a day for 4 days in a row, you could make it. But that's if you only sleep for 3 hours each day.
And the road doesn't get wet in that period.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what we found ourselves having to do, which made it even more stressful, was we had to pair the mama cows with the babies, okay? Now what we mean when we say this, there's 2 ways you can haul mama and baby. We call them pairs, okay? There's 2 ways you can haul pairs. You can either just sort the mamas on one side, the babies on the other, load them all up into trucks, take them to where they're going, dump them all out into a big pen, and they all find each other. The miracle of nature, they all find each other, and then you let them out. If you can't do that, then you have to bring the cows in and go, here's cow number 74. Does anybody see calf number 74? And we came up with a system that was better than that. But essentially, just to illustrate it for you, that's what we were doing. And so we had 300 and some cows that we would have to go and make sure that we had all the calves. So,
and the reason, right, is because, like we say, if in that 3-day window you get wet roads or something, you can't truck continuously. You don't want to have calves up in the mountains with their moms being here.
Right.
So we wanted to haul pairs up together so that if anything happens, they're all paired up.
Exactly. And it's June. It's early June in central Montana, which prior to the last 2 years, it's rain time. Like, you're going to get a shower almost every day. So best case, we'd get 3 loads up there in a day, turn them out, and then we'd have to turn our rest of our cows back out and let them go to pasture if it rained. Bring them back in, sort them off. So anyway, we kind of illustrate this situation for you. But in the pursuit of always trying to be more efficient and be quicker and hustle, we thought, what if, because now that I'm home, I have my CDL, what if we got a second semi that would cut from 12 rounds down to 6 rounds, right? Which, it's so hard on Rooster. Even doing those 12, I mean, it was rough.
That
we
was
tried to
so
make
brutal.
because we'd load. We'd we got it. We'll load. We'd load everything. Rooster just sit in the truck. We'd load it and then back out. And we're like, and sometimes we'd follow in the pickup to help out up there and unload and whatnot. But where in 2009 do you find another California side loader semi for sale
That can make those roads.
that can make the roads? That's why. And at the time, I'm using that truck to haul these loads every week from Fairfield every Monday. So I'm like, well, if we get another one, we could haul more cattle from Fairfield, or I could, kind of have my own rig to do this with. So we find one down in Idaho for sale at the old Roscoe Wagner. And if you guys are around Twin Falls there, you'll know if you bought a Wilson trailer anywhere in Idaho, Oregon, Nevada, Roscoe Wagner is like the original oldest Wilson trailer dealer. In my mind, they're like Wilson number 1, right? So we call up Roscoe Wagner, and he had retired he had an entire fleet of side loaders. He'd retired them all, and they'd just been parked in his lot for years because nobody really wants them. So I get wind of this, and I'm like, Rooster, we can go down and we can get another side loader. And, Rooster's kind of chewing on it. So we jump in the car and we drive down there, and we go and we find the best one. Like, because some of them are just like, oh, whoa, this thing's been hammered in the mountains, We find what was the best one, cleanest one. In fact, it had been wrecked a few years before, and they had just put a new cab on it and then retired it. So it was like this, like the plastic was still on the mattress.
It was in good shape.
It was in really nice shape. The engine had just been overhauled like 50,000 miles before. He had records on it all. The only little thing that was sketchy about this truck was that it had the so hated Silver 92. The 8V92 Detroit diesel 2-stroke. Don't even know. If you're out there listening, I don't even want to hear it. Don't comment about it. Now, they are the worst engine ever. Billy Jack will tell you this, and I will tell you this. And most people listening out there that will truly be honest with themselves will admit that this was one of the things in the world that just shouldn't have been created.
I remember my first time seeing it when you guys had brought it up. Before you even got it back to the ranch in town, you all were fueling it up, and Rooster's semi was somewhere there, and I had the big Cummins in it, which sound I'm used to.
Oh yeah, Rooster just the cook, that nice chug.
And then I go over to Jaxon and say, "Oh, this sweet truck Jaxon just bought," and it's like, and I think, Jay, there's got to be something wrong with that truck. I said, "No, that's just the 2-stroke." You were still a little excited.
I was going to give it a chance because it was like that's the truck, the silver cabover in the James Bond movie, like that, the Silver 92. I was like, I'll give it a shot, and I had even asked Spencer Pearson, our mechanic, about it, and I think he was just trying to be nice. He's like, no, just kind of doing one of those, and I'm like, yeah, it's going to be awesome. Only 50,000 miles on an overhaul, which we find out doesn't mean anything with a Silver 92. It doesn't matter if it's got 10 miles or a million miles on it. It's like, they're just kind of waiting to go whenever. But so we go down and we get this truck, and it's geared. It's a Silver 92 with a 9-speed. But Roscoe Wagner, in their infinite wisdom to overcome this horrible engine, put I don't even know what the rear ends are, but you're wrapped out at 2,300 RPMs. Just ripping, just screaming.
They call like these, a chainsaw.
Yeah, they call them screaming Jimmies because when a 2-stroke Detroit is wrapped up, they just actually they don't run, they scream. It just sounds like someone's sitting next to you in the truck screaming in your ear.
It really is unbelievable.
Yeah. So, and nowadays people are like, that's so cool, man. I'm like, nope. You ever driven one? You ever lived in one? Nope. Anyway, so I gotta stay focused. So they put you could drive 54 miles an hour at 2,300 RPMs. That was it.
In ninth gear.
And this is with tall rubber on it. So you got every ounce of speed you can muster. And that's it. That's all you got. But that's fine because we're just basically I'm using it to run here. When I had to go to Fairfield to get the cattle, it was like,
Mm-hmm. But to the upper ranch, you're never even coming close to touching 50 miles an hour.
Right. No. So before we ever even get to use this truck, no, we actually did. One season we got to use it at the upper ranch. Turned out great. We turned our 12 rounds of cattle into 6. Mm-hmm. Rooster's looking much more alive, little less stress. Again, our sonly duties were feeling like, hey, we helped our dad here. This is good. Like we're relieving some stress. So one fall in this truck, we get some cattle lined up over in Fairfield, and I'm like, all right, it's time to go. Let's go get these cattle. So I drive over there, load up. It was probably 52,000 pound load of cattle, pretty full. And I wrap up the old Screaming Jimmy, screaming across. Got her just wrapped out doing 54, doing the deal. And I'm pulling up this hill just outside of Great Falls, Montana, between Great Falls and Lewistown. And I just kind of feel like this, just kind of weird. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And I look over in my passenger mirror, and they had one of those round mirrors that lets you kind of see your smokestack.
Yeah.
And I remember looking over and just pouring out just midnight black smoke. And I'm like, that's not normal. And at that point, I look down, and then all my tachometer, everything just dies. It's all boom. And I'm like, oh, that's, And I'm pretty young, and I'm like, and I'm going up a hill. And so, you don't even have much time. All of a sudden, you guys, when a truck breaks down, breaks down, and you're going up a hill, you don't have much time to do anything. You're like, I got to get off the road. At that time, this was a narrow stretch of road. They've since widened it to a beautiful big old 4-lane, but at that time, it was this narrow little 2-lane. And I remember looking down, turning the key off, flicking it on, and hitting the starter button.
This has all happened in how many seconds? Instantaneously.
It's like 10 seconds start to finish. You're stopped.
Yeah.
So I'm still rolling. I hit that starter and it just went, and I'm like, that's not good. So, but of course, I'm still young enough. I don't really know a lot. Now I know immediately. Oh boy, oh buddy. So I move over to the shoulder as much as I can. I got a load of cattle on. When you got cattle on, you can't get off the pavement because if it's soft or whatever, you can tip over. So I get just to the edge, or one set of duals is on the pavement and the outside wheels are kind of off, and get it stopped. And I set my parking brake and I climb out and look. And every fluid that you can think of that goes into semi, power steering, oil, antifreeze, blinker fluid.
Probably some of your big gulp even.
Some of my big gulp. Probably, anything is all just pouring out onto the ground all together. I'm like, what's a rainbowy looking concoction there going? And it's just running down, just immediately a river down the road. I'm like,
So does it click then? You're just like,
then it clicks like, these engines are just as awesome as everybody said they were. 51,000 miles, and she comes apart. I mean, in total annihilation. Not like, you better overhaul that thing. Like, no, hey, look, there's my pistons. That's what the pistons look like. They're all they're dangling down out the side of the engine. So now I'm in like just total disaster mode. Kind of like you were at Pishkin. I'm like, I don't even know what to do. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know anything about mechanics at this point much. I mean, I kind of know my way around, but nothing like I've learned now. And I'm just like, I have a cell phone, flip phone. But I'm like, I don't even know who to call. And I think you were in South Dakota. I think you'd hauled a load of hogs and were gone that week. So I think I called Mom and was like, I'm going to need a ride, I guess.
Yeah, I was on that end of things. That's where
you were over there.
About it. Mom said, I think Jackson's truck just blew up.
And with cattle on, with the load on. And it's a side loader, you guys. So this isn't like, if you can unhook the trailer and get another truck, you can move on with the load. This is
so true.
You can't unload anything unless it comes out of the side of this rig. They have to step out the side. So my next call is to an old trucking friend, kind of a mentor to me at the time, Bo Sommerfeld from over in Fairfield. He's probably 30 years old at the time, and he's got a 379 Pete and a big triple axle, and just like my dream,
Good old boy.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And I call him, and I was like, I'm in a bind. I don't even know what to do. My truck just blew up. There's antifreeze, tidal waves. There's kids surfing on my oil slick down there in traffic waiting to get around me.
I think it's a super fun cleanup site now.
Literally. So I call him, and he's like, okay, it's going to be a few hours, but I'll come. I'll get the cattle off. We'll figure something out. So in the meantime, now I'm sitting here, and I'm like, I don't know. I block traffic. Now there's only one lane. People, like, they'll dart around me while I'm waiting.
What's your air pressure doing? Are you losing air?
Always going down. Glad you brought that up. Because here's the other thing with trucks, Roost, right? When you lose air in a truck, what happens?
You can't move.
Brakes
You can't move.
locked up.
Your brakes will set. Yeah, they'll lock up.
Yeah.
So they need air to release them. You don't. When you run out of air, they're designed to lock all your brakes. It's a safety thing. Like, well, you have no air. We're just going to lock you in place. So I'm losing air, and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to move. And just about at that time, I get a little knock on my door. And I'm like, oh, what? And I look down. It's this little old man. And he's like, oh, you look like you're in a pickle, son. I'm like, I am all the pickles, man. I'm a whole jar of them. And he's like, well, I've got the pickup here in a chain. If you'd like, I'd probably give you a pull. And I'm like, and if we can get to the top of the hill, there's a nice pull out on both sides, a double pull out thing. And I'm like, man, from the bottom of my heart, like, I love you for this. I so much appreciate this offer. You were so kind. But just to be nice, like, there's no way.
But you had 54,000.
I got 54,000, which means I'm grossing. I'm like 84,000 pounds. I'm like, it's a nice gesture, but there's just no way it's going to be some kind of wreck. He's like, well, I don't know. My old truck's pretty good. And so he comes. I'm like, well, okay.
What did he have?
He comes bopping around in like a first gen, maybe it was second gen, Dodge, a dually, pulling a flatbed. And I'm like, well, what are we going to hook onto? You don't even have you're pulling an empty flatbed trailer, an old gooseneck. And so I get out, he backs into place, and I get out, and all the while my air is going down. And once my air gets to a point, I'm stuck, right? I'm going to have to call a tow truck. And I have no money. Like, I'm nothing. So he backs into place, and I'm like, so what's the plan? Like, what are we going to hook up to? Like, I'm used to when we tow with the pickup, what do? You wrap it around the ball or something, right? Or the, the receiver, whatever. He's like, no, we'll just hook it on. I welded a hook on the back of this old flatbed. I'm like, yeah? Well, let's see. So I go around and look, and it's just like this this hook, and I'm like, ooh.
He welded on.
Yeah, that he welded on. And I'm looking at this flatbed, and I'm like, I think the hook ain't the only thing he welded on this flatbed, But I like literally, I have no idea what to do.
Yeah, what else are you gonna do?
So I'm like, okay. And I'm like, you think your pickup's gonna? I'm not gonna just rip your whole trailer in half when you start pulling. I mean, this thing, guys, we're talking like a homemade mobile home, like he made his own flatbed. Oh no, I've hauled a lot of concrete on this whole thing. And I'm like, okay, just so you know, like if because all I'm thinking is he's gonna start to pull, I'm gonna release my brakes, and I'm gonna go down the hill and start jackknifing, and the trailer, I'm gonna get all bound up, and all this while I'm just thinking, Rooster's gonna kill me. Rooster's on the road.
Wait, didn't you say, I think I remember you telling me this story, what my favorite thing from this whole thing is when you said, you don't think that your welds are just going to bust on that hook that you welded on there? Or didn't you say, he said something like, oh, my truck will blow up long before my welds ever break?
Yeah, that's how much faith he had.
This guy knew. This guy knew what he was. He knew what he had going on.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, okay, if you're willing to blow your truck up to help out a poor soul, So we hook it up, and he pulls forward slow and puts a little. I said, you put tension on the chain, and then I'll release my brakes. But can't release them. I just have no air. We got one shot to do this. And, okay, he goes and puts a little, taut in the chain, and so
puts it in 4 low.
Yeah, puts it in 4 low, and he waves his hand, giving me the handkerchief out the window, and so I push my thing in, and we're just sitting there, and I'm like. And all of a sudden, just this of smoke starts coming out of this old Cummins Dodge, and I'm like, oh, and it's kind of, you can just tell the truck's kind of humping up, and then he lets that clutch all the way out, and just and those wheels they didn't even slip, they just starts going. And all of a sudden my truck starts rolling up the hill and I'm like, no way. There's no way. I'm waiting for like the chain to snap and come through the windshield or like the gooseneck to rip off and the whole thing just, nope. Whoa. Then he just let it go. He's just like letting this little Cummins eat, just whoa, whoa,
just let it eat.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh man. And so we go and he gets me all the way up the hill, and my air is just slowly going down. He gets me all the way through, clear to the far side of the pull-off.
Yeah, all uphill, too,
up
obviously.
This hill. You guys, and I mean, it was from a dead stop. 86,000-pound semi from a dead stop. This is just a good old boy.
So the old 5.9 Cummins is...
Oh, yeah, don't ever knock them, because, man. So he gets me off, and we pull over to the side, and I unhook the chain, and I was just like, my grandfather, just come here. No problem. Happy to help a guy in need. And just drives off. Never saw him again. Never saw the truck. Never saw the guy. Have no idea who he was. But he has no idea how much he just like saved my whole everything. Yeah. So anyway, we end up getting the truck. Bo comes with his semi.
And Bo has one of the reasons Bo could help because he had a side door on his bull rack.
His
big.
Yep.
And not a lot of guys have those.
Right. And the highway patrol had to come out.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
because me and Mom were there.
Yeah, because you guys had come out at this point just to kind of help flag and...
Well, or to help tail calves over on the Bo's truck. It's more what I was doing.
So we couldn't do the perpendicular deal because we'd shut the entire highway off, and the highway patrol's like, no, we're not shutting the highway off for this. So Bo just happened to have a combo trailer, which has a side load door for Oregon and a regular back door. And so he was able to kind of wiggle in the other direction, and we got him in and done. But the fallout from all this was, here I am now. I have a blown up truck that Rooster purchased, and here we are. What are we gonna do? And so what did we have to do? Oh yeah, we hired a tow truck. Got a tow truck. I think it cost me like $520, which is like at that time in my life, I'm like, that's it.
I will never financially recover from this.
That's how I felt. That's exactly how I felt. And on top of that, I'm just like, and this is Rooster's truck. So I'm like, oh man. So we get it and we tow it back to our mechanic, which is, Bill's brother, Spencer. And we just tow it in there. And of course, at the time, I'm thinking like, well, maybe there's still something they can maybe do. I don't really know. And he's just like, no. So I'm like, how about a Cummins conversion? Can you get a big cam Cummins and put in that truck? And he's like, I mean, and Spencer's looking at the truck. It's a 1980 spring ride Freightliner. Oh, it's just like nightmares from the past. He's he's seeing it, having dreams of Blue One, going, son, you should just run from this thing. Like you don't want anything to do with this truck. And I'm like, oh, but I don't have a lot of options.
You don't understand, Spence.
So, and I'm telling him, of course, I feel obligated to fix the problem, right? Because, and Roos has never been the kind that's like, you owe me 17 cents for this. He's just like, it'll all work out. Just do what you can kind of thing. So Spencer, I said, do some digging around. Do you have any ideas for me? I'm just young. I don't know anything. I have no idea what to do. So Spencer, sure enough, he calls one day and he's like, hey, I have an idea for you. And this is a long roundabout way to understand how Weston's going to come back into this story. But he goes, I have this idea for you. And he goes, I had a guy call me. He's got two 1988 Freightliner cabovers that have been parked in his shelter belt for 16 years. He goes, don't know anything about them. They ran when he parked them, kind of stole some parts off of them, which is always like a nightmare because you're like, who knows what they took off and when and what. So he's like, here's the deal. He'll sell them both for $500 a piece. One of them's missing rear ends, but the cab is like perfect. The engine, it appears to have low miles. The odometer's like 700,000 miles on this little 350 Cummins. And I think we can get it running, right? And I'm like, okay, well, so how's this going to fix my problem? I'm still not putting this together. And he goes, you have to buy both of them. That's the deal. He wants them both gone. But I think we can get this one running. It has no rear ends, but we can cut the frame off behind the cab. We can cut the frame of your broke down, blown up truck, who we affectionately called Old Jake. We'll cut Old Jake, remove the face. We'll get who later became known as Frankenstein
Because of this.
because of the head transplant. So we literally took the actual literal front engine cab, frame rails, and front axle of this cabover, plated it up against the old running gear and cattle box of this old truck, plated the frames together, and I think he had to put an injector in it, put batteries in, fired up.
Didn't it fire up, or the other one probably fired up while you were out there? Or
The other one did. Yep, while they were out there. So I end up getting this truck I purchased these 2 old cabovers. I get this one running, get it all done. It ended up costing me, I think, $6,000. And I got Rooster whole. got old Frankenstein back. But of course, at that time, that's like 8 months of work. Like, I don't know. But it was one of the deals. Like, while I was using it, I was running it. I blew it up. Would have blown up soon, whatever. But
maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't have.
Yeah. Who knows? You never know.
It's just the right.
It'd all been driver error.
The right time of the day. Oh,
which is kind of funny. Just me thinking about it now too. Is had he not blown up, you wouldn't have got into those 2 semis, and had you not done that, I mean, I'm sure everything you would have got to where you're at now. But just that getting into those 2 semis as we.
But Jim, I don't even know that I would be where I was now. Like you say, you probably would have, but I don't know, because getting those 2 cab over semis was literally. Sorry, I said that again. Literally, the gateway to everything. Like it became the all. It like opened the doors, lit the fires.
Yeah, it really did.
And got it all going. So you guys, just to wrap this up, this is where we ended this, is that, and I'm going to leave you hanging, because the next part of the story is where you're just going to go, what? And we're going to get in this I wanted this to be kind of an introduction to Weston so you guys could get to know him a little bit, get to understand the background, and realize that though he was the youngest, and we like to tease about how the young ones got the preferential treatment, Weston was cut from the exact same cloth, burned in the same fires of tribulation.
No doubt.
that all of us were. Luke's the oldest, Weston's the youngest, and you're learning that their stories are the same. Just years and years of the same.
Coulter, our other brother, had the exact same
stories. So anyway, we get these 2 trucks put together. Now I've got 350 Cummins in this truck, and I'm ready to take on the world. I'm hauling all the cattle that are out there. And we have another little wild card. And the wild card is the second truck that was in the bushes. And we're going to save that for the next episode. You guys, thanks for listening. Just as a reminder, you have any questions, any comments or feedbacks or inquiries, email us at steadyatthewheelpodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out Steady at the Wheel Podcast on Instagram. And, of course, this will be up on YouTube on our new channel for Steady at the Wheel.
They know about the merch that Luke has, the shirts.
Yeah.
Those are sweet. I'm sure he just
introduced them a little while ago, and he's just about ready to start. I think he's got this website about ready to rock.
Does he? Oh, awesome.
And in fact, I'm going to find one and put on and I'll wear so they can see again as a reminder. But you guys, appreciate all the support. I continue to love this. This is one of the highlights of my weeks, is getting to sit down and do these things and of course share some more, reminisce. I'm such a sucker for nostalgia. I just love it. I'll go to the end of the earth to find it. So getting to sit down and do this is awesome.